Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast and happy Tuesday. Today, we have a very exciting topic, which is how to divorce in a classy way without going broke. Today, we have a very special guest that Shanae brought, David. I'm very excited. So, Shanae, take it away.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you, Dave, for joining us. Dave is a professor at Columbia University Medical Center. And of course, I met him at the Geffen Center because that's where all the ballet moms meet. And David goes there and works. And by the way, he's a singer as well. So he's like a man of multiple skills. But David is so much fun to talk to. And we talk about so many different things. And when I was going through my breakup, David is currently going through a divorce as well, right? But the way that David has approached it, I'm like, why aren't more people doing this? With about, I don't know, over 50% of people going through a divorce, it's almost kind of like the thing to do. So you might as well know how to do it in a classy manner without going totally broke. So as I was talking to him about my ex-boyfriend and what he was going through, he's like, wait, why would he do this? Why would he do that? And I'm like, wait, what, give me some intel, David. And he's like, well, David hired a dating coach. And I know that not everyone can do that, but
Divorce code.
a divorce coach. So yeah, let's get you a dating coach later. But so we got this divorce coach, and I'm like, this is brilliant. And the amount of things that people don't realize you should or should not do, it's astounding. So I thought it would be fun for people to get to hear a little bit about David's process. And I'm excited to kind of like, rehear everything. So David, tell us a little bit about, obviously people end up divorcing for multiple reasons. So we don't really have to get into that. But what is it that inspired you to get a divorce coach? Not a dating coach, divorce coach.
Divorce code. I knew that many people had gone through it, and I can't remember who recommended it. I'm not sure if anyone did, but I found a divorce coach in New York that just could help me when I interviewed her, and I think I may have interviewed someone else as well. Just seemed like the right thing to do to sort of help me process things because I didn't want to go through it in an angry way and also be blaming and sort of that I could sort of modify it so it wouldn't become even more contentious. It's not truly contentious, but it to minimize that possibility. So that was a goal of mine. So my divorce coach has really helped me think through many different aspects over time and sort of how to handle communications with my son, with my wife, and sort of to move it through.
So now, why a divorce coach and not just a regular therapist?
Have that too.
That's what we like to hear, right? Yeah.
Exactly. They're different. They serve different roles. And so
Right.
because the divorce coach, she's connected to lawyers, she's connected to finance people, she kind of really understands the process of whether you're going through a contentious divorce or whether you want to go through I've forgotten the word for it, but the friendlier divorce, right? And sort of try to help you. I wanted to go through a technically friendlier divorce and manage that. And so that was sort of the hope and goal.
So, I have a question. I mean, it's not common that somebody would look for a divorce coach to begin with.
That's why I
So,
brought
like,
David on.
right. So, like, who gave you this idea? How did you come up with something like this? This is just, people get divorced all the time,
I
in
know.
2025. But how do you come up with a divorce coach?
You know what? Honestly, I can't remember how I found out about it the first time. I really can. It was, 2.5 to 3 years ago, but it's just been brilliant to sort of help me, like, where I'm stalled. Like, the idea is, like, how do I get unstalled? How to get unstuck? How do I process the multitude of feelings I have? And I'm the one that have asked for the divorce, but I'm also trying to process my wife through it as well, is because I got her one, but she doesn't want to use it quite in the same way that I want to use mine. So it's been a very different process.
So you wouldn't be using the same one, like it wouldn't be like couples divorce coaching, for
No,
example. They don't do
no,
that. It's
no,
it's
because
one coach for
the
person
d
to
yeah,
person.
the divorce coach is for you. to help
Okay.
you think through your best options and your best goals and gives you tips on what to talk to the lawyer about, how to think through things, even think out things in general, right?
So
So
now,
what's a divorce coach's credentials? Like what do they need to
I
possess to?
I don't know. Oh no, mine is good. She has a podcast. She's been through a divorce herself, and she after her divorce, she said, "I wanted to help people go through it in a better way than I did."
I
And
think
she did.
that makes it actually stronger to have someone that's gone through it and is passionate about making sure that others can go through it in a smooth process.
Right.
Okay, so you brought something up that I really wanted to kind of like go through the stages. You talked about feelings, emotions, kind of going through that whole stage. What brought you to the point where you were ready? Now, you don't have to go into the whole personal stuff, but kind of like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready to ask for a divorce. What was that like? Your feelings?
So it was staged, right? So things weren't going well probably 15 years ago, and I said we're headed for divorce. I said, if we want this to work, you need to go to therapy, right? So we went to couples therapy. We did 3 years. We actually went through two therapists. First one my wife didn't like, and so we changed and had one for 3 years. We were copacetic after that. I had to stop it because I had a big research project that I had to start and run the team and all this stuff. So I was like, I couldn't do weekly therapy and do this new project on top of everything else I was doing at work. So we stopped and we were copacetic, we were good, but it wasn't great. And then what happened? I think a number of things happened. One was my mom died right before COVID. I got COVID. My brother got cancer all within like
When it rains, it
10,
pours.
10 months, right?
Wow.
And I just realized I survived the COVID. I had it pretty bad initially, and she helped me through it. So I really thought things weren't going well. So at the end of it, in a sense, with all that, it's like, hey, the relationship isn't great. And so I said, listen, it's like we're headed for divorce again.
You
I said,
stated this to her.
yes. I said, we're headed for divorce again. I said, but this time it's in your
Your
you have
what?
to your court. You have to do something.
That's so much better, by the way, when you put it close
Yeah.
to you.
It was a
Yeah.
little
Let's
muffled,
keep it
so
there.
now
Sorry. Yeah. So I said it's in your court. You have to. It has to have to do something to help this relationship, and nothing happened for 3 years. And so that really was the crux of it. It's like, all right, I had 3 years to grieve that nothing was happening, and it was like. Then I said, we're getting a divorce. It wasn't, we were headed for one. I want one. And so that was it.
So now, okay, so you stated, okay, I want a divorce. And you were, I mean, this was 15 years coming in. So the feelings just had time to kind of build up and go, like,
Right.
I just need this, right? Okay, but one of the steps you told me that I thought was really interesting, and I don't know that a lot of people know this. We talked about how my ex, his I guess, currently still wife because they're still going through the process. Told him to move out, and he did
Fast.
it, right? And then told him to get a bigger apartment, and he did. And Dave was like, "What in the world?" Because and why don't you tell us, David, why you wouldn't do that?
Yeah. So I think in the context of when I had decided, and I think I'd started having my team set up of the divorce coach and everyone in the planning of it. And I may have talked to the lawyers initially and said, listen, I'm planning this. This is what my situation is. And they said, don't move out of the apartment because you'll prove that you can afford the apartment and your new source of living. And so if you don't want to prove that, then stay. And so that was the advice I got. I've moved to a third bedroom and all that stuff. So I'm separate, but I'm still here.
okay.
Now, I'm divorced as well. I ended up doing everything on my own, which was really stressful. But thank God it got done. But my question is, I think you said 2 to 3 years. Have you filed for divorce? Number
Oh
one.
yeah, everything's filed. I just stopped it because of some chaos at work and stuff like that, but everything's filed. We're at the stage of where I put my finances through and the financial person and lawyers have thought through what my asks are. But I stopped it right after that just because things were so unsettled, and as you might understand of where I work, that I just like, okay, let's put it on hold until things are a bit more stable.
Okay.
So that is something that's possible, right? Like, for example, I have a patient and her husband has asked for a divorce. She's not ready yet. I mean, she's been processing everything through therapy and she's doing a phenomenal job. But one of the fears that she had was she's like, well, I'm not ready right now to sign. I'm not ready to negotiate. And I was like, listen, he can do whatever he wants.
Right.
You sign when you're ready. I wanted to get your input on that.
Yeah, the signing, I forced the signing. So because the person came to our door, the apartment. Yeah. And
They
so
served her.
I opened the door, they served her, and so it happened.
She still has to sign that paper, like, you can serve her, but
Yeah, so because I got her a lawyer, and the lawyer and my lawyer, like, hey, needs to happen. It
They negotiated.
happened. Yeah, they negotiated and it happened. So it's not like the proceedings sped up or anything. It's just that the formality of it from the legal system, it's served, but it's not completed.
right. But she still gets her time to sign when she wants to sign, or is there a
No,
limit?
she's signed. She hasn't signed like the final thing and how things roll out. She's just signed the legal papers by the state saying she was served and that the divorce papers were served, right? So
Okay.
I think there's more. I'm assuming there are a lot more things to happen. I know there are a lot more things to happen, but this is just the sort of, I filed with the state. It's official with the state. She had to acknowledge that, and that's what's happened.
Right, so she signed that she received the paperwork. She didn't
Right.
sign the paperwork yet because they have to go through it with the attorneys together.
Pause for 1 second 'cause you're to edit this out. I have to open the door really quickly, so give me 1 second.
Okay, hold
Sorry
on.
about that.
I think it's possible. I'm not sure of all the legal terms of what's happened so far. She not only signed it, she received it, but because that's just the person who came to the door that she signed that part, but she also signed the papers that came from the server. And she then put that to her lawyer. Then her lawyer got it to my lawyer.
Okay, so now I have a question because this is about how to divorce in a classy way. As you can tell, David is a very classy man, so that's why I had
Yeah.
to throw in classy in there. How to
Thank you.
divorce how to divorce in a classy way and not go totally broke. So, what I heard you say, David, was, you didn't want this to be contentious. So,
That was my goal.
that was your goal. And we can't tell other people how to react, but
Right,
you get to maintain your class, right?
right, right.
The totally not going broke, what are other things that you have learned? Because attorneys are expensive. So if you can't afford an attorney, what are some recommendations you would make?
But that's partly why I got the divorce coach. The divorce coach technically is cheaper than the lawyer. And so I can work a lot of things out with the divorce coach without involving my lawyer and the lawyer's time. So meeting with my divorce coach either every 2 weeks or every month is cheaper than the 15-minute increments of a lawyer.
Yeah.
In New York City, it's kind of crazy, but I interviewed about 4 or 5 lawyers, and a few lawyers said I couldn't afford them. I was like, thank you for telling me ahead of time. Let's go.
This
So,
appointment is $1,000.
exactly.
You're like, let me stop talking now.
Exactly.
Actually,
I'll see you later.
I do have a recommendation because while working child welfare, I had a lot of families that were getting divorced and they were trying to think of ways of how to do this for free, pretty
Mhm.
much. So what we would do, we would send them to the Peace Institute in New
Mm.
York. It's basically attorneys that are straight out of law school,
Oh, wow.
and they are sitting down there basically just facilitating meetings between the parents, writing it up and having an agreement, and then they file. And that's pretty much,
That's great. I mean, that
yes, and
also
it's
means
free.
both are talking to each other. Both parties are talking, both are sort of willing to make these steps. And that's where mine is a bit different. It's like your patient today. My wife doesn't truly want the divorce, and so she's not talking about it in general. And so that was the other part with my coach. Is like, how do I get her to acknowledge that this is happening, so that it's not like this in at all coming to closure at like this final point with her saying, "Oh, this came too fast." It's like this has been going on for way too long. So how do I keep? She uses the word dosing. Like, how do I keep dosing her with the message that this is happening? I am going to take care of you. I'm going to help. It's like I'm not trying to sort of take her for granted and not support her for what she needs to support for. But I also am not going to be taken advantage of either. So it's like, what's that balance and sort of how do I make that happen?
See, that's a classy man.
Absolutely. No, but there's certain points in life where you do have to put your foot down because you
Right.
did give her that option. You gave her the opportunity to take those steps. You gave her 3 years. Some people don't give it like even 3 weeks. Like you
Right.
have X, Y, and Z time to do this. You gave it a long time, plus 15 years ago, you already said it's going.
I have a friend that's gone through 3 divorces, and he
Oh,
goes, "You're a patient man." And I was like, "Well, I guess so. But comparatively, I think there's a very big difference."
Well, everybody processes things differently. Not
Right.
everyone is able to just change partners like that. You
Right.
know,
Right.
you have a foundation with this person, and I'm sure you guys still have the stuff between the
Yeah.
two of you. It's just you can't be together.
Right. And
It's a
even
married couple.
we have an adult kid together. So even that, even though he's an adult, he's still our child. I want or he's and I want we want to I want to figure out how we co-parent together in the best way possible, even though he's older. So that's a process.
So what does she feel about this? Like the co-parenting once the divorce is
Honestly, she's still not talking very much. So it's complicated. So we're working through
so
day to
she
day
does not
things.
she doesn't want to be in therapy. She doesn't want to have any kind of intervention as far as support for her.
She supposedly has a therapist,
Okay.
but I don't think she uses the therapist in the best way possible. That's my gut because that she's been stuck so long. I think it's she hasn't gotten past. She hasn't used the tools that she has available to her to move past this.
well, she sounds like
Mhm.
she's in denial. But I do have
Yes.
a question because we're concentrating on you here.
Yeah.
So in order to make sure that you don't go totally broke through this process, your divorce coach encouraged you and lawyers don't move out. Okay, so that's one of the things. I just wonder though, like, how does that feel stress wise? I mean, you're living with a person that does not want to acknowledge this divorce. You need to move forward. You're in the same living space. So I kind of want to hear a little bit about how that works for you.
I mean, it is stressful. I can't deny that. But the biggest, it was sort of a different dose in everything else that I moved to the third bedroom. And so it really told her that's like, this is real, even though I'm here. I also switched bank accounts so that my salary goes into my account and I give her money as opposed to it going into a joint account. And so that was another sort of signal that things were different. But I mean, we still somewhat sharing. Like I cook, and my son cooks as well, and so we share cooking at times. And so it's I try not to. It's not like I don't argue and get mad, but I try not to do it on a regular basis. That's not the environment that I want to sort of foster. And so it's like I'll do all of my well-being care, like journal, to make sure that I'm sort of making sure I understand my thoughts before I go back and sort of talk things out so that I really understand myself and what am I angry at, what am I reacting to, so that I can have a more effective conversation. And so those are things that I do.
So that really comes down to, yet again, your divorce coach and your personal therapist.
Right. Right.
Yeah. He knows how to process and just let himself understand what he's feeling. That's important.
Right.
That's
Now,
so
one other thing that I had, you have an adult child, so I know it's very different from a young child and trying to co-parent together. But I think that we do forget that adult children still have feelings and they're
Very much so.
together. So, are you comfortable talking a little bit about how that process has been for you?
Yeah, I mean, we've had my son and I probably have a, well, I know we have a strong relationship, but it's not as sort of emotionally close as I would like. But I know that when he truly needs someone to have his back, he turns to me. And so, but I know that he's within all the struggles of what today's youth are going through.
Mhm.
Um, the divorce is one element, one more element for him. Like the job market for the youth, these computer science is not great right now.
Yeah.
Sort of, he graduated in 2020 during the pandemic, so that wasn't a great space.
So did we.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's just a tough time, and the divorce is layering on that. So yeah, and his grandmother's has dementia. So
Oh God.
and
Wow.
the first experience of someone dying was my mom. So his grandmother that lived in Texas. So it was a lot of things that he's sort of really experienced in the last couple of years.
Now, David, so one of the things that when I see couples, I always tell them when they come to therapy, I'm not here to keep you together and I'm not here to break you apart. I'm here to get
Right.
you to hear each other to decide what you want to do, right? One of the things I don't agree with, though, and I want your insight on this, because I know your son is, I believe, in his 20s, and I think he was
Right.
young when this all kind of started. I don't personally, I mean, I do believe that people should do therapy, all the steps that you and your wife took, but I don't think that parents should stay together for the children. Because I feel like that's bad role modeling as to
Yeah.
what and the energy, right? So I wanted your input
Yeah.
on that.
I think it's more complicated than that, especially from a guy's point of view, in the context that I did stay, I know, for a good period of time, because if I left, I knew she would get more time and more custody than I had. And in my opinion, that was problematic. As a pediatrician, I didn't think that their relationship was great.
Mhm.
I didn't think that she supported his ego, a healthy ego development. There are a number of examples that I have on that. And so when I come home from work, a lot of times I'd have to mediate between them.
Mm.
And it wasn't always that she was right. Right. And so I realized that it would be so much harder to mediate if I was in another apartment somewhere else.
Mm.
And so I stayed because I was like, all right, I need to sort of balance this out so that hopefully he sort of progressed with a solid ego that he could move forward in life.
But this goes back to how you are a very well adjusted man, for lack of a better term. So you're someone that's able to kind of like put the drama behind, you're more reasonable. I know you quite well, so, but even talking about here, you're just more reasonable. What if there's just a ton of tension between?
Oh no, so it's not good. Yeah, I
Because that's
agree.
normally the case, right? You're just
Exactly.
more
That
than that.
is normally the case. Yeah. So that I would say that's not great for the kids to stay
No.
in such a contentious, negative emotional environment.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so now I want to get into what's next for David. So how do you move
Yeah.
forward from like once? I mean, when do you move out? And are you dating? Are you looking forward do you want to get married again? I mean, there's like all these
I
things.
know, I know. I've thought about all of that. So once everything's sort of the paperwork and all that, all the finance stuff is sort of done, then I'll move out. just because that solidifies how things are split up and what I get to, what I can afford, and how
Yeah.
we how support. And so that's the move out. I'm not dating because I'm not finished with the divorce, and because of my patient population, I realized that there, even though I'm in the divorce, my experience with younger individuals that start dating before they're out of the
Mhm.
other relationship, there's always this suspicion with the new
Yeah.
partner that you are seeing somebody else on the side in
Mhm.
anticipation of leaving them. And it's like, all right, I don't need that extra drama as well.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just not
It's
where I don't need that. So it's like, I'll wait. And then whether I get married again, I don't know, actually. I'm kind of ambivalent. It will have to, to do that formally. I think it would have to be a really special relationship that really transcends what I've been in now. And I'm hopeful, but I'm not. I think I can have that without the
You could just
signed
have fun.
papers. Exactly. Exactly.
You could just enjoy life
Ex-
partnership. You don't have
exactly.
to be official.
Yeah.
It's okay to do that.
There's a
You've already
great
had that.
there's
So,
a there's a great novel by uh, Nobel Prize winner. What's her name? Doris Lessing. Have you guys heard of her?
No.
So she was born in Rhodesia, white woman, had 2 kids, married, and all this stuff. Was doing all the sort of traditional sort of motherly things, and she said it wasn't right for her. And she, in her way, just left. She left her kid, which was so extraordinary because this was back in the 60s, I think.
Ooh.
And she left and went to England and became a novelist to the point where she got the Nobel Prize for fiction or for her writing before she died in her 80s.
Wow.
But one of her books that she wrote that's uncharacteristic of her writing is a science fiction piece. And one of the books in that science fiction series is the marriages between zones 3, 4, and 5.
Oh
And,
gosh.
yeah, and
wow.
it's a really interesting book, and it talks about that there are this society that there are these zones, and one zone characteristically and formally it's sanctioned to marry between the zones. Like there's one person from zone 4 that marries zone 3, there's one person from
Hmm.
zone 5 that marries zone 4. And if you think of sort of whatever the hierarchy or sort of maturity of those different zones, it's sort of that one marriage helps to elevate the other zone to another level.
Oh,
And I love that sort of idea of it. And so the last zone, the top zone, is like there's no marriages. It's just really solid relationships, solid communities. You bring up your kids in a really beautiful community space where everyone is loving and everyone is taking care of the kids and everyone just has solid relationships that are, I'm not sure how fluid they are, but they're just not, it's not like this sort of rigidity to the thing. And I love that sort of context.
Yeah. That's amazing. So, okay. We've learned if you can get a divorce coach, get a divorce coach, cheaper than an attorney.
Yes.
where does one look for a divorce
I
coach?
think you can, I know you can Google them. And my divorce coach has
Or
a
is it Google?
podcast like you guys and all this stuff. So
I think that's a great idea. I'm going to be advising my patients to do this.
yeah,
Yeah.
This
no,
is
it's great.
Well, and the thing that I like is so, like, okay, as you stated, David, the divorce coach knows attorneys and all the other resources that you may
Right.
need should you be able to afford it. But for those that can't afford it, I mean, I think even just a therapist or a divorce coach just to get some insight.
Right.
For someone like me that at the time I could not afford it, and I had to go to the courthouse and fill out the paperwork and do all that stuff. So there's different ways of doing it. But
Mhm.
we know if you can get a divorce coach, get that and an individual therapist.
Right.
We know don't move out.
Exactly.
What else did we learn? If with class, try to not be contentious.
as much as you can,
Yeah.
as much as you can control.
What other points would you want to put out there?
Always consider the kids, no matter how old they are. I mean, after I finally asked for the divorce, my son wanted to go out and we had dinner. And during that dinner, he was like, I have one, he was trying to figure out how to tell us to remember our good days and get back together. I was like, well, thank you for your advice. It was like, I've been in this relationship for quite some time. I didn't tell him quite that way anyway. But the last part, he goes, I have one request. And my one request is that, or my one statement, he goes, is if you talk bad about your mom, my mom, and if she talks bad about you, I'm going to take the other side. And I said, you have my promise. I will never talk bad about your mom in front of you.
So
And so
important.
that was sort of our baseline conversation. And that's sort of been one standard that we've kept.
No, that's
That's
amazing.
beautiful.
You bring up
Yeah.
another point that I did kind of want to point out here. I think a lot of kids, especially more teen and adult kids, think they have the right to tell their parents when they can or can't date, or who they can or can't date, or whether they should or shouldn't divorce. And I think it's really important to point out that you're still the parent.
Right.
And you're the one in the relationship. And so kids should not get to have that right. I've always told my patients, tell your kids, I respect your opinion. I hear you.
Exactly.
But
But yeah,
ultimately, what I do is my decision.
exactly.
So I
Yeah.
feel like you handled that really well with your son.
Yeah, no, it went well. I think we had a contentious moment at that dinner, but we got through it. I've forgotten what it's been a while, so I've forgotten what the contention was. But those the bottom line is like we'd settled how we were going to that it was he's our only kid, and so it's so easy to have a triangle, and so
Yeah.
we were like, no, that from my point of view, I'm not going to put that on him.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's very healthy. And it sounds like you are really teaching him to be a healthy, also healthy in his future relationships as well, because he's learning from you. He's
I'm
going to be
trying.
modeling your behaviors. So it doesn't matter. Like, a lot of people, like from my culture, for example, people stay together for the children constantly. And sometimes it's not healthy to stay
Right.
together for the children because if parents cannot maintain their space and can't control certain things, children witness
Yeah.
a lot of the negativity and then they bring it over to other relationships. So what
Exactly.
you're doing is beautiful. I'm very happy to see that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Shanae, are we going to be wrapping up soon?
I think we're wrapping up. David, thank you
Okay.
so much for joining us today.
Yours.
I think it's a really important topic, but again, as we've spoken so many times, the way that you've handled this and things that I learned from you,
Beautiful.
I thought people need to know about this. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having me. This has been great. All
Thank
right.
you. It was a
All right.
pleasure.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. See you
Bye.
next time. Bye bye.
Bye.